Hey there, everyone. How's it going? It's football. We're entering preseason week 2, and this video is going to be about how to update the NFL algorithm. There's a lot of programming involved with the NFL algorithm, and a lot of certain areas you can look at. So you can't really do a how-to update tutorial for the entire season in one video. This is going to be a series of videos. So we're just going to start though. We're going to start with the basic elements. We're going to talk about the results from preseason week 1, and we're going to by the end of this video, get some raw projections for preseason week 2. Even though you'll see as we discuss the results from week 1, how preseason is extremely difficult to predict. I think we all kind of know that because they're just not playing all the players you would expect to play. It's just a hodgepodge of people that are still trying out for the team. So let's first review here what happened in preseason week 1. So whenever I see this like this, which I call this about barber pole, I call this barber pole colors, meaning there's really no streaks of wins and losses that mean anything. I mean, you got 3 in the middle here, but 2, 1, 2. It's basically like random noise. So you could say that the NFL algorithm really didn't provide much predictive results really for week 1. But that's okay. It's preseason. So what are you going to do? So you understand that going into preseason week 2. So scores were kind of okay, but not really. You just don't know who's playing, right? So I only made one wager on this. I made a wager on the Patriots when I was in Colorado, and of course they blew this game and they covered, but they didn't win, and so I lost my bet. That's a good start to the season. So anyway, so you have your results in here. Well, how do you get this thing ready for week 2, right? What do you do? Well, what's feeding this pivot table and what's feeding these results is the cube sheet. Okay. The cube sheet is where we have and we start to stack all of our projections for all of the games for the season. And they're in order, and we add to them as we go throughout the season. So all the games that are related to preseason week 1 are shown right here. Okay. So these are all the preseason week 1 games. And some of the columns over here are formulas. All right. Some of the columns that matter, there's projected score for the team of reference, projected opponent score, line, spread, and the final score. These are all formulas that are looking at other sheets or other areas of the file. And we need to freeze them now that the week 1's preseason is over. Okay. So that they're not pulling formulas in the future because they don't need to anymore. So all of this area right here, all the way down to preseason week 1, you can see the colors change as we start to migrate from preseason week 1 here to preseason week 2. This is where the changeover occurs right here. That all these areas need to be turned into values. So you copy, you highlight them, and you turn them into 1, 2, 3 values. And now they will stay static throughout the rest of the year and be frozen because they're not supposed to change anymore. These games happen, the projections happen, everything happened, the lines happen, it's over. And now we can start to talk about preseason week 2. So I have already laid out preseason week 2 and preseason week 3 because these projections are actually not going to change. They're all based off last year's stats from the season pivot sheet here, where we run some projections. This stuff is not going to change until week 1 or week 2 of the actual season, when a bunch of updates happen to all the team stats and stuff. So this kind of stays static for the very beginning of the year because we just don't have any current season stats yet. So we have to use last year. At least that's the way that I approach it. So we've got this preseason week 2. Well, what do we do? How do we get this thing complete? How do we get lines and how do we get spreads and everything in here? Well, I just turned these things into formulas here, but let's talk about how we get the lines in first. So the lines are going to be here in the odds RotoWire sheet. Here are the lines from week 1. We do not need these preseason week 1. We do not need those anymore. I have gone into RotoWire and I have exported the odds for preseason week 2 or week 3, as they call it. It's really full week 2, which starts on the 18th of August. So we're going to copy this information, these odds right here, and we're going to bring them into, go back to our NFL file right here. We're going to put them right here. And they're going to fill themselves in. Okay. This stuff's going to fill itself in automatically when you paste it here. Now let's go back to the cube sheet And let's write this formula because we actually got rid of it by accident. Because I pasted it. Usually you can pull it down right from above, but we just turned this into value. So let's write the formula so you understand what it is. It's equals VLOOKUP. We're looking for the team right here, and we're just going into the odds sheet and we're kicking out what the line is, right? Which is the third row over is the money line. 3 false, and that's there. And the same formula with the VLOOKUP reference number being 4 will give us the spread. Oops. And so there we have this, and now we can pull this down, and voila, pull it down for all the preseason week 2 games, which go down to about here. You see, this is where the break is between preseason week 2 and week 3 as we've lined up this file. Let's put that there, I guess. So we now have lines and we have projected scores. And this is basically ready to go for a lot of what we needed to do to show what it's going to be for preseason week 2. I'm pasting the formats down so that you can see the colored area. It's now correctly colored. And so we've essentially got preseason week 2 lines of projections in here. So let's go to the pick sheet. And we're going to refresh this pivot table, right click inside and refresh the pivot table. And now let's look at preseason week 2. Hey, we've got projections. Now they're not necessarily complete yet. What else do we need to do? We need to make sure that the injury report is updated. So the injury report and the projection pivot sheet are 2 areas we need to update basically simultaneously. So we're going to go into the injury report, which is over here. This was the old injury report from prior to preseason week 1 starting. We're going to remove just those clear areas of that injury report. I've gone into RotoWire already, and I've already run the injury report. This is under players, injuries, or something like that. You can find this injury report. I ran this export. I'm copying it now. So this should be current injuries. We're going to paste it right here. And we're going to make sure that the formulas go all the way down. They do. There's always some formulas over here as far as this information went. So now we've got our injuries done and our odds done. Okay. Once this is in here, okay, that this early in the season here in preseason where we're not doing anything with actual player stats yet because there are no player stats yet for this year. So this is basically all you have to do is you go to the projection pivot sheet, Proj pivot, and you refresh this, and everything is just changed with injuries included now. So your injury status is over here. There are some people that are questionable. You need to hold down control and bring the questionables back in if they change this injury status title thing. So all the questionable people and all the people that are not injured are in, and everybody with IR or PUP, I don't know what PUP means, but I think it means they're out for good or they're out for the game. Reserve, all that stuff needs to not be highlighted, and the questionables and the 0 or the no injury need to be highlighted. This lines up properly, meaning this column M is where the final number is for the grand total. Everything looks good. So all of a sudden, the last thing you have to do is go back to the pick sheet and watch this. We're going to refresh and keep an eye on your scores here. Your scores are going to change slightly. They slightly changed based on the injury report variances, like who got injured or who didn't, that affected point projections. So everything's sorted. Voila, you're done. And for preseason anyway. And you've got some projections. It says things like the Bengals at an underdog line over the Giants, the Eagles, Seahawks, Tampa Bay, these things. But it's preseason, right? These guys don't need to play hard. I think Tampa Bay lost a game. I think, did they lose in week 1 here? Let's look, did they lose? I think they lost. Yeah, Tampa Bay lost to Miami here. We could open it up and see all the scores. Point is you just don't know who's going to be playing hard in the preseason and who's going to be playing as everything's going to be tested out. So as much as I'd like to say, this is going to be really helpful, it's not necessarily going to be helpful in the preseason. I think it'll be better than you think, but we just have to see exactly who is playing and what do we do with kickers and stuff like this. Like, for example, Jacksonville has got no kicker listed on their team. Why is that? Did they cut someone? We need to go into the all players. We need to go into their roster. We need to figure out exactly what happened with these guys. So there's more work to do actually in this projection pivot sheet. Cleveland has no kicker. Why is that? If we go to their depth charts and we find out whether or not they have a kicker, we could go here to NFL or our depth charts. We need to do more research. It's for another video, but basically we need to go in here. We need to make sure every team has one kicker. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to the all player sheet and we're going to find these players and we're going to find out who's played for who. And that's another thing we need to do is we need to update the players in the teams. I didn't talk about that. That's another extensive part of this video. Before I really release any projections for week 2, we also have to do this. We have to make sure that everyone's on the right team. And that means bringing in more projections. So as you can see, this is a video series about how to update the NFL algorithm because it's not as quick and cut and dry as you think. It gets easier as the season goes on because you start to get repetitive actions that you're doing every week, and you don't have to continually shift stats and shift players as much as you do early in the year, but that is still what's happening. So if you'd like to purchase a copy of the NFL algorithm, it's $50 for one copy. It's $100 for a month. We'll start with the September edition, will be $100, or it's $250 for the season. I am continuing to raise the price every single week. And I'm doing that because I want to be compensated appropriately for this work. I'm in a state where I'm not wagering it all on this. I'm doing this all for you guys. And YouTube is telling me that people do want to see football videos, but they also want to see me do other types of videos. So the price is going up. And for those of you who waited, you might be just buying a $50 version for the week and trying to update it yourself, because I can only put so much time and effort to this. And the more money I receive for doing it, the more I will, obviously spend time on it. But if we don't sell, like with baseball, I just didn't sell enough and I had people complaining. And so I stopped doing it. And now I have someone else doing it for me. So if you want to talk to that person, you can compensate them for their time. But this is work. So understand that I don't listen to complaints. If you don't have the money to pay for this, then you shouldn't be betting. That's the way I look at it. All right. So good luck, everyone. May all your picks be winning. And we only have a few more weeks here until we can get us some real regular season action and really dig into actual stats that are popping out and having some fun programming and changing percentages. You're looking at about a 4 or 5 video series here about how to update this file. And it's database management. Like people get paid a lot of money to do this for companies. So you're just doing it in one file for football. All right, guys, good luck. May all your picks be winning.